Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Petter Hartman, and I am the CEO of Medicon Valley Alliance. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome you all to Medicon Valley Alliance Medtech Network meeting, this time on digital transformation in Medtech. This network is organized by us at Medicon Valley Alliance together with two of our members, Ideon Science Park in Lund and Sensagen. And I would like to thank both organizations for helping us and collaborating with us on this network. Before we start, I would just briefly take you through some of the household rules that we have when participating in an event like this. When you enter this meeting, you are automatically muted. If you have any problems of technical sort, like technical issues that you need help with, then I have two colleagues waiting for you, and you can write to them in the chat function. Then we also have a slot at the end of this program where it will be possible for you to ask questions to the speakers and to the presenters. And for that, I would like you to and encourage you to use the Q&A function in Zoom. And then we will try to bring up and summarize the questions and bring them up to the speakers at the end of this day. We will also send out a link to presentations after the event, and please also note that this event will be recorded. The Medtech Network was established in 2017, and we normally arrange 2 to 3 meetings on a yearly basis. And this is a forum where we intend to bring up discussions about synergies and opportunities and also challenges that we are facing in the ecosystem here in Medicon Valley. And as a member of Medicon Valley Alliance, you can attend these meetings free of charge, but you can also actually bring up topics and be part of hosting a meeting, which is an opportunity that we also encourage you to get in contact with us if you have any ideas on topics that you would like to discuss in this framework going forward. And it's of course also free of charge of doing so. So this is part of being a member-driven organization, and we love to be in contact with you on these issues. But the Medtech Network is not the only network that we have. We also have actually 4 other networks, an oncology network, for instance. We have an R&D network, a microbiome network, and we are actually organizing a conference connected to the microbiome network in just a few weeks, a summit. So if you're interested in that as well, please don't hesitate to sign up for that as well. We have also an executive club network where we invite C-level representatives from our approximately 300 member organizations. And hopefully we will be able to meet also in a physical setting in a not too distant future, which we really look forward to. But for now on, we are happy to be able to provide you with these meetings also digitally. Digital transformation is reshaping, I guess we could say, the medtech landscape and the life science sector in general. There are, of course, many different drivers behind this, but one is definitely the need for patient-centric care and patient-centric solutions. And this is the topic for today's meeting, and we have put together a strong list of speakers from both big global companies and a bit smaller and innovative companies from the region. And first, we will listen to Stefan Olsson, General Manager Nordics at IQVIA, and he will sort of put this topic into a context and elaborate a little bit on our strongholds in the Nordic countries and in Medicon Valley, obviously. And then we will listen to Holti Kelesi, Director of Business Development and Regulatory Affairs at Dawn Health, who will talk about accelerating digital health innovation in pharma and medtech. Then we have 2 presenters from Novo Nordisk, Tommy Gravesen, Senior Project Manager, and Nicolas Süler, Product Owner, who will talk about user-centric design in Novo Nordisk. And then finally, but not least, we have Roland Persson from Baxter. He is a site innovation champion, and he will talk about digital tools for healthcare in a home environment. So without further ado, I think it's time for us to start with the first presentation, and I would like to ask our first speaker, Stefan Olsson, General Manager at Nordics at IQVIA, to turn on his camera and unmute yourself, please, and start preparing your presentation.
Thank you, Petter. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, and we can also see you.
Very good. It feels like the Eurovision Song Contest or something. You're sitting there behind the nice Öresund's channel, but really nice to be here. And thank you for a great initiative, Medicon Valley Alliance, to invite to this kind of a meeting, kind of ensuring we can meet and we can keep up even during these times. So I'm really happy to participate, and I will now start sharing. So Petter, maybe you can confirm that you can see my screen?
It works perfectly, Stefan.
Perfect, thank you. So yes, so my topic is about taking medtech concepts to market. I will share a few perspectives on that. And as Petter said, also start by looking a bit on the kind of preconditions we have here in Sweden, in Denmark, and in the Nordic region, and especially around the Medicon Valley, of course. Before, I will just have a few words on IQVIA. I know that some of you know us very well. You are our clients. Some of you may have heard about us, but I'm also quite sure that some of you have not heard about us. So let me see if I can move to the next slide. There it works. So IQVIA is the result of the merger of two companies, Quintiles and IMS. And IMS Health, some of you may know very much from commercialization of product, especially if you are coming from the pharma side. And Quintiles is one of the largest CRO organizations in the world. So bringing those two together, we have put solutions, products, technology in place, what we call from molecule, from early research to market implementations. And now we're taking also those perspectives into the medtech industry, which is an area that we haven't really had as a legacy or as a historic experience, but we see that healthcare, pharma, life science is becoming more and more connected. So with that, I will start by just having a few looks at the Nordic region. And I think in a way we have very good preconditions. We have all national strategies to become leading life science nations. It's even sometimes a bit of a race on which country has the most innovative or updated life science strategy. And I know that especially between Sweden and Denmark, there are some very active work from the politicians to ensure we're becoming attractive regions to research and development, to attract industry investments, but also, of course, ensure we have the right talents in the region to work on improving life science. We also have a history of being forerunners in e-health, digitalization. The Nordic region had EMR systems and quality registry systems and digital information systems in place long before other countries. We are into the second or third generation of these systems. And that's, of course, a good foundation when we are building new solutions, ensuring we have data, real-world data to use and make the benefits from. And then, of course, the cluster that we are seeing right now, the Medicon Valley, about 500 medtech companies in the region here. I think that's a very interesting space when we see that also innovation in these countries are on top of the lists globally. The blue dots are the IQVIA offices, so we place ourselves a bit in the middle here of Medicon Valley. Innovations are important. Innovations are on top of the agenda on most countries, but the other side of that coin is that most innovations fail. This is a known fact. And we also know that if we don't innovate, companies who are standing still will die. So what is then the impact for the life science and medtech industry because of this? You have to be able to orchestrate all the operations from the early R&D phases into bringing the concepts to market, providing quality control, regulatory safety and compliance solutions along the way. This is like the whole ecosystem that you need to orchestrate. And for larger companies, as Petter said, some of you are working in traditional pharma companies that now are also expanding more into medtech. You know this. If you have been bringing drugs to market, you know that this is the kind of road and process that you need to manage. But if you are a smaller startup, if you have a very clever, smart invention, it can easily be that that invention drowns when you come into these different processes. So when we ask, this is one of the things that IQVIA does, we are looking at what does the market say? And when we look at the market dynamics around medtech, this is what medtech executives say. The ever-changing regulatory environment is a key challenge to handle. You need to be on top of that. You need to also ensure that the product development is effective and you can cope up with competition. At the same time, price and profitability are areas that we always see in all different domains, and especially also in medtech. The changing reimbursement environment is something that also is something to handle when it comes to especially the public sector market and public healthcare market that we are acting here in the Nordics. You need to be ensured that you, when developing your invention or your solution or your product, also have the end in your mind, meaning how will this be reimbursed? Who will pay for this? It might be a great invention, but who is the buyer? Who is the client? So all of these implications or risks, of course, create potential delays into a market, and delays are reducing the ROI that you may have had from the beginning. You need to handle the different areas around approvals, patient safety, product recalls, and financial penalties if things go wrong. So if I summarize the product life cycle and the orchestration I opened up the presentation about from concept to market, these are the different processes in a very simplified way that you need to orchestrate. Typically, if I look at the smaller medtech companies, the very innovative ones are very good in the research and discovery and sometimes also getting into the product development phase. When it comes to ensuring that you have an efficient and good manufacturing and distribution, you often need to start looking at maybe some partnership. You need to understand the market dynamics. Again, who are your key stakeholders that you need to manage, and also who are the clients. Approval, market access, and the commercialization are areas that of course come much later in the process, but you always need to of course have that end goal in mind from the very stage. Those horizontal processes are supporting this journey, and I think that a number of those, looking at the technology part, developing solutions based on real-world evidence, very exciting areas, and especially also doing the piloting is something we are quite good at. There's one area here, one horizontal, that is probably the least exciting one, the most boring area, and sometimes also the most complicated area, and that is about compliance. If the compliance horizontal doesn't start very early, here ideally actually when you are in the early research and discovery phase, but instead waiting till you may come into manufacturing or approval, then you are actually delaying the go-to-market opportunity a lot. And that's a major risk to handle. So within these short minutes here now, I will put the focus on how you manage the quality and regulatory and safety and compliance. To start with, you need a very solid quality management system. You need to be able to handle compliance in an integrated way within your different processes. You also need to have a quality and regulatory compliance approach in terms of all the way from strategy, reporting, handling the different approval processes. Because if this becomes depending on a lot of ad hoc activities, and you may not even have thought about this setup in the early stages, this is where you might fail or you might delay the development and the go-to-market. Looking at the commercial compliance, it's of course key that we are ensuring the ethical and transparency in terms of our developments. And we have very clear guidelines in our countries about how that should be done. And again, if you come from pharma, this is something you're very used to. If you're a traditional, or if you are more a medtech company or even a startup company, these are areas that you may need to look into a bit more in detail. As I said in the beginning, we have the benefit and the fortune of having a lot of data. We can go back and look at historical data. We can look at quality registries. We can ensure we are actually doing the testing and the go-to-market on historic data. That's something that you can actually benefit a lot from, and you can advance and speed up the whole process. So applying analytics and also AI, of course, is a good enabler to ensure that your full process around compliance is becoming more effective. And last but not least, vigilance and safety, handling the complaint management, the reporting. And we know that EU is helping us with some regulations, and being on top of the MDR, ensuring that we are understanding where this product will fit in and what will the implications be from where it lands as a potentially medical device. That's also key to ensure that you do not delay the approval process. So to sum up, if you look at this, I took the key focus around how you do the compliance part. But if we look at the overall here, it is about time to market and it is about compliance. So by using technology in a smart way all across the processes, including the clinical trial design and delivery, will speed up the therapies to patients. The real world data we have is something that we can ensure that we have evidence-based innovation. We often start with innovative ideas, but we can very quickly start proving how innovative and how useful is this invention. So having that integrated into the clinical development, the commercialization, and in the regulatory compliance is something that really can also speed up the whole process from concept to market. The market and the different stakeholders, and also how you need to make your invention or your medtech product fit, will definitely in one way or another be put in some kind of a silo versus other areas. And that's one of course, the issues and challenges we have now in the region, how to break those silos. How can we make an ecosystem around patients, around healthcare, around research to become less siloed? And I think if we have that also in mind, and if you orchestrate that in a smart way, ensuring that key stakeholders for approvals can be at Socialstyrelsen, can be in the region, are aligned and already prepared when you are getting into your product development and approval process. That's something that also can ensure that you are not sitting and waiting when you have come that far with your invention. And then finally, the safety and regulatory solutions that we talked about. That's something that is, of course, not just during the approval and market access process. that's something that goes all across the life cycle. That's something that, for example, Medtech products are mandatory to have post-market approvals, and that's something you also need to think about before you even go to market with your solution. So with that, the journey you take from concept to market, an exciting one. It all very often starts with a very exciting innovation. By having a clear plan from the beginning, looking at those different horizontal perspectives I just presented, will put you in a much better and more secure position when it comes to launching your invention to the market. I want to end by saying we have quite some white papers and quite some thought leaderships on our webpage, so feel free to step in there and see what you want to download. That's free thought leadership that we are providing. And if there are any questions, we will have a Q&A here in the end, but you also can find the people to reach out to if you have any thoughts on where your invention is in the process right now. So with that, Petter, I will leave the word over to you again.
Thank you so much, Stefan. That was really inspiring and a really good way to start this this session here today. Can I just ask a quick question? You mentioned this silo thinking. Do you think we are ready on a national level in let's say Sweden, Denmark, and all the Scandinavian countries to start breaking down these silos? And are we ready to think, you know, beyond the national life science strategies to pool our resources in some areas where it's necessary? Do you see these tendencies?
The politically correct answer is, of course, yes, we are. We are ready to do it. Are we doing it? That's a no. We have, as I said in the beginning, I think we have the strategies, we have the e-health plans in place. I think really where it comes down to now is about how can you put the governance around this? How can the regions ensure that they are executing on the national strategies? I think there we still have a bit of work. I'm not thinking that anyone is sitting and just refusing to implement good steps forward, but I think there are a lot of priorities that has to be made in the regions. And I don't think our systems are always geared to drive for this kind of innovation, because we have a bit of an old healthcare system in terms of how we treat and how we deal with healthcare. So going from a reactive system to a proactive system, that will take a bit of other activities also to happen. But yes, the answer is yes. I think we have the very strong drive, especially from politicians, and that's where it has to start.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Stefan. And please stay with us so we can have a discussion at the end of this session. And now it's time to switch to our second speaker of today, and it's Holti. Hi, Holti. Thank you so much for joining us today. Holti Kelesi is Director of Business Development and Regulatory Affairs at Dawn Health. And Holti, please introduce yourself, introduce Dawn, and the screen is yours.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, everyone. It is really a pleasure to be here today. So yeah, as mentioned, my name is Holti Kelesi, and I'm responsible for the business development and regulatory affairs activities here at Dawn Health. And today I'd like to just share some of our thoughts working within the digital health space and our collaborations and learnings of working with some of the leading pharma and medtech companies on how to accelerate digital health innovation within pharma and medtech. Now, if you just give me a second, then I will share my screen. There we go. All right, so just shortly about who we are as a company. So in short, Dawn Health is an integrated digital health product development agency. What that means is that we provide a specific set of services with our partner companies. That goes everything from research to design thinking to actual designing, software development, regulatory, quality, medical affairs, etc. that we engage as an integrated model to support digital health innovation. We have a quality management system, ISO 13485 certified. That means that we can function as a critical supplier for medical device software development and also GXP software. And then this year, very humbled that we actually won the Microsoft Partner of the Year 2021 award for transforming products, which was a great achievement for us as a company. And then we are also part of the Trifork family, the Trifork organization, which some of you may know from both the Mean Lay application, also maybe of the Corona Pass, as they've been part of that. So some of the companies that we work with, we do work with a number of both larger pharma and medtech, but also with public and private healthcare institutions, and also together with smaller startups. So we have many different partnership models ranging in disease areas from chronic lifestyle, such as obesity and diabetes, to more rare disease areas as well. Now, I mentioned it quite a number of times already, but just so everyone's on board, so what is digital health? And also just to be open about it, I also think it's a bit of an overloaded term. It's been used many places and over many different things. And now we're kind of reaching a stage where we're agreeing on the definition at least. But in short, digital health is a term for technologies that engage consumers and healthcare professionals for lifestyle and health-related purposes, technologies that capture, store, or transmit health data, and technologies that support life science and or clinical operations. Now, under this umbrella terminology, of course, a number of technologies, ranging, of course, from sometimes maybe also other overloaded terms such as artificial intelligence and big data analytics and blockchain and etc. But it does encompass the different types of tools that are used in healthcare. And under this umbrella are also other definitions within digital health, such as digital medicine and digital therapeutics. Now, the most important thing to keep in mind when looking at a digital product used within the healthcare, it is really to look at the purpose and function of such a product, because it's that determines its categorization, its risk level, and requirements for clinical evidence and also regulatory oversight. Just to show it in a different manner as well. So digital health can also mean, you could say, more lifestyle wellness applications used within a specific disease area. It can help to support with education and motivation. It can also be worked to collect and store different health information. But to go over to, you could say, the more of the right part of this figure, towards digital medicine and therapeutics and actually therapy, we're looking at more evidence-based interventions that do support diagnosis, treatment, and or prevention using a number of different tools. And to get to that stage with a more of an integrated condition management solution, combined either with IoT-enabled products or maybe even co-packaged together with different medicines, you of course need more clinical and real-world evidence to support that data and the claims for using these products. And you of course also need a higher technology and regulatory investment. And then these therapies or these digital solutions become more of an R&D project and have to be kind of understood as such within pharma and medtechs, just as other R&D projects are kind of respected in that sort, because then it becomes more of a strategic consideration for that company. So if we just double down a bit more within digital therapeutics and the different opportunities to enhance such outcomes, digital therapeutics can, of course, function standalone. So you have different algorithms that can either help with treatment recommendations or even have a better early stage diagnosis. And that can function alone. But we're also looking at a complementary solution, especially within the life science industry. So using digital tools to optimize and enhance the use of medicines and the use of different medical devices in a manner that together actually can improve patient outcomes than each one alone. And then already here on the right side, we're looking at combination between actually co-packaged digital solutions together with medicines or different IoT-enabled products, which again can enhance that experience of both products, and it may even also for the companies support exclusivity or other different pros within that. So one way to take the first step, as I believe most of at least the members of MBA have discussed this, or at least taken the big step towards implementing digital health, either from small scale to larger strategic considerations. But there are a number of ways, of course, to accelerating this. And one way is, of course, that all of this is done in-house. Some companies do that. Others, they acquire new companies. But there's also, of course, the opportunity to partner and partner with specific specialized organizations that together can complement the creation and establishment of these digital health innovations. Now, when partnering with such companies, it is important also to ensure that those complementary skills are set, because such digital health companies, they must also have an understanding of the life science industries, of both medical device and also of pharma. And not only that understanding, but also how then digital health can address the needs of patients and also healthcare professionals, the strong capabilities needed to design and build medical grade software, and also have an integrated methodology that is not silo-based, but together can create specific user-centric design, technology, and quality. Then on the other hand, we of course have the pharma medtech teams. They bring, of course, a deep understanding of the therapy areas, the patient disease journey, the challenges. They also bring a global commercial presence and capabilities with understanding specific local markets, and have extensive experience already with clinical evidence generation and regulatory and medical affairs. In addition to that, they have a network already, or at least depending, of course, on the scale, but a network to be connected with healthcare institutions and healthcare professionals. And when together going on such a partnership path, there are, of course, many different things to take into consideration, such as, who will take the actual legal manufacturer responsibility of that solution? What do we do with data management and analytics? How about platforms? Do we build on existing, let's say, Microsoft Azure or AWS, or do we co-create this? Is it out of the box? What about lifecycle management and changes and updates to that? Pharmacovigilance, once it's on the market, user acquisition, etc. That responsibility split is, of course, important as soon as you take that step to ensure a successful acceleration of digital health innovation. Now, this is just highlighting some of these specialized capabilities any organization would need to successfully build digital health solutions. This integrated capability, either via a partner or in-house, it's important to have product strategy and design, the commercial aspects, the research of understanding where you can have an impact within the ecosystem, designing, of course, establishing a great user experience to actually get people engaged, and then also enable it with a strong regulatory quality and compliance that fits in together with the technology. All of that integrated is at least a fantastic starting point done to accelerate these. Now, when we do talk about digital products, it's important also to keep in mind that when thinking about digital health, we have to think about it in an end-to-end continuous process. So when starting with a new idea, a new innovation, designing it, and having a concept, and you test it with end users, and of course going into developing the product and launching it and operating it, you have to do that again. You have to learn when the product is, of course, on the market. You gather more learnings from your end users. The technology, of course, changes on a day-to-day, if not month-to-month basis. You have to adapt, and you have to innovate, and you have to do this repeatedly. That is also a very key aspect when moving into digital, just in general, because the timelines are just also very different compared to traditional timelines in pharma and medtech. Yeah. So one thing that we have discussed, at least internally, and also just some recommendations for any pharma and medtech company wanting to go on such a journey, it is really to sprint, to start small, but also think big in the long term. And I'll also be a bit bold here and say that getting started is actually more important than being right, especially in the beginning, because you will not get the perfect solution from endless circular discussions. You need to get started, and by that you have to use a process to identify where you can actually make an impact in the patient journey and the ecosystem. You have to become tangible, so create prototypes and test and learn from your users, and do that continuously until you reach a format or a level that that you want to take the next step in the actual development journey. And all of the assumptions that, of course, everyone makes when going on such a strategic journey or roadmap, you have to experiment and conduct in-market experimentation to really validate if the business model or the assumptions that have been made are correct, and do that hopefully prior to building or maybe even launching the solution, to have time to optimize it and make it good. But you learn, of course, continuously while being on the market. Secondly, of course, in this phase, it's important to define commercial objectives with the ecosystem in mind. So clarify the challenges you wish to solve and the business needs before simply throwing technology at it. This can, of course, be done from enhancing clinical objectives. I mean, is the strategy to support existing treatment or products? Is it strategy to really, via digital interventions, to have treatment outcomes for patients? Should we integrate to existing clinical flows for better diagnosis or treatment? What could that be? And on the other side, of course, the commercial differentiation. Is it about, enhancing a brand reputation and leadership? Or more new methodologies of care, or possible real-world evidence for payer involvement. There are many different things, and of course, digital health is still at its infancy stages, even though we've been talking about it for a long time. But the most important thing is to establish an ecosystem approach for successful market entry, because any solution developed here will not be alone. It will be part of a larger ecosystem. And having that in mind is vital for a successful entry. We've also already discussed a bit into the regulatory landscapes today. It is vital that we embrace this regulatory landscape, because it has a major impact strategically, and it will be shaping the future within the field of digital health and digital therapeutics across all global markets. So the first things that as a company going into this field is which markets are actually in scope, and is it or is it not a medical device software? And to really make that decision, the intended use of that product from the very beginning will be detrimental to ensure that the resources and timelines match, of course, the expectations and the roadmap. So taking that into consideration, it's always that it doesn't mean that you have to go full throttle digital therapeutics and all that follows from the beginning. Start small and use regulatory strategically. And with that in mind, also with the new medical device regulation coming up, it will shape the future of digital health in Europe. So we might as well be on the forefront on how to do this in the best manner. Lastly, it is vital that the organizational expertise is activated and leveraged upon, because as a pharma and a medtech company, the knowledge, a lot of the knowledge is already in-house within many different elements, and it's important that we get the commercial, the regulatory, the medical, the science, the IT, the legal, R&D, etc., depending of course on the scope, but involve them early and involve them continuously from the very beginning. It's also important then that this is a new area. No one has all the answers, but the organization should be able to work both with other internal teams, as mentioned, break down the silos, but also externally with other experts and communities, and of course also end users on the market. And of course, going on that roadmap over time from a smaller scale experimentation, trying it out, to more long-term strategically senior leadership involvement would of course be essential as part of that product roadmap. And lastly, leverage that network already established within key opinion leaders and the research community, because they are also just as interested in using digital tools to improve their patient outcomes and also their clinical operations. Yes, I will keep it there and just say thank you so much for your time. And yeah, if there are any questions, of course, we will take it later.
Yes, we will. Holti, thank you so much for a very inspiring presentation, and also congratulations to the prize, the Microsoft Partner of the Year prize. I think that's fantastic. And one of your key points here, I think, was also really good to repeat. Getting started is more important than being right from the beginning, perhaps. But we will come back to this later on in the discussion at the end of the program. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now over to our next pair of speakers, and this time we will listen to one of the companies or representatives from one of the companies that Holti showed on one of his slides, one of the companies that Dawn Health is working with, and I'm talking about Novo Nordisk. And I'm really happy to have Nicolas Süler and Tommy Munk-Grovesen with us here to present the Novo Nordisk perspective on user-centric design. Tommy and Nicolas, you're free to upload your presentation and take it from here.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look forward to share.
Yeah, so I'm Nicolas, working as a product owner and innovation lead in Novo Nordisk Digital Health, and Tommy will also give a short introduction.
Yeah, I'm Tommy, and I'm project manager and leading digital health solution development.
So we're here to talk about how we do user-centric design in Novo Nordisk. And before diving deep into the how, I will just take you through why we're doing this and also an example of what we have done. So in Novo Nordisk, our ambition is to prevent, treat, and improve patient outcomes. What we're doing in Novo Nordisk Digital Health is to support this ambition. So we work to improve outcomes by reaching treatment outcomes. Our application is helping people get even more out of our Novo Nordisk medications. And what you see here is actually an opportunity staring us in the face. So the column to the left, you see a degludec example from a randomized control trial where 50% of patients reached an outcome of an HbA1c below 7%. Then in the middle, you see a real-world study where degludec was the first insulin used, and to the right, you see where you switched to degludec. And as you can see here, there's a pretty big gap of 30% and 38% in the right column. This is the opportunity we are addressing, the real-world outcomes gap. How can technology help us get this right? This is an example of what we have done. NovoPen 6, NovoPen Echo Plus, smart insulin injection device with connectivity. It measures dose time and dose size, and uses near-field communication to transfer this information, so to speak, an IoT-enabled insulin pen. We gave this pen to patients in Sweden as a minimum viable product. These were patients already using a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM. They were prescribed the NovoPen 6. They used the pen as they would normally use any insulin pen. Then they did regular healthcare provider follow-ups. And what you see here is to the right is a terminal where there is a software solution where you could see this data from the pen. 12 diabetes clinics all over Sweden participated in the study with a total of 270 patients. The data was downloaded at the clinic. Number of units injected and date and time of dosing was transferred using this near-field communication to the solution you see here in the middle, provided by Gluco. And the results we saw, they were improved time in range that was driven by less time in both hyper and hypoglycemia. So I don't know, I guess the audience out here is somewhat familiar with the diabetes, but you want to control the blood glucose so it is in range, and what you don't want is it for to be high, hyper, or to be too low, hypo. And what you see here in the chart is that we saw almost 2 hours or more time in range, and that was driven by less time in hyper, meaning too high blood glucose, and less time in hypo, meaning too little blood glucose. So how do we find our way to make this technology solve these real patient needs? And the example that we just show you, how did we find our way to this? So in Novo Nordisk, we're working with different tools here to gain user insights and to leverage these. And to the left, we have the market research. You know, this is the traditional way of probably doing things that we know from life science, where you collect a lot of good insights into the market, but it is also in a way very passive. You collect information, but you do not provide an intervention, so to speak. You do not provide, you do not throw a thing in there that people can play with, like a prototype, right? In a way, it's very passive, but we still do it to get a pretty good overview of the market and what people can see of needs on top of their mind. When things start to speed up, we do design thinking workshops where we have both our cross-functional agile teams that has insights both into the commercial side of the business side and also the technological side, and this can be both on the digital or software side, but also on the device hardware side. And we, so in a way, you merge what the users need combined with business requirements and what is technologically feasible to ideate, and then you throw the thing in there, do a rapid prototype, and get feedback on this. And that feedback is, of course, best if you have also had users in there. So co-creating with users, putting them as part of this sprint, what in a fancy word you can call a holding environment, where we get together and create new innovative solution, a mutual goal to come out of this workshop with an innovative solution. And taking this further, when we have the concept ready and some late stage prototype, of course, we continue with doing user testing. This is where you get the details right, where you make sure that the user can use what you are developing in a safe way, and also that they understand what they're actually doing. And over to you, Tommy, to take this deep dive further on how we do things.
All right, thanks a lot, Nicholas. Yeah, so this is, of course, let me see, if I can enable my video. So this is, of course, the process that we do. I think most people who has been in tech business for a while would know about design thinking and about that process. And this is also the process that we employ here. So what I'm going to talk about is how we have done here. Unfortunately, I can't share the details of the project, but I will try to learn some or tell a little bit about the overall learnings that we have had during digital innovation here. So Nicholas, we could take that next slide. So one of the things when we do design thinking workshops is that we have many ideas come up all the time, and the important thing, and many of them expressed by users, and you really feel a huge urge to solve all that problem. But it's an important thing to ground yourself and make sure that you of course take people seriously, but you don't take them literally, because they can ask for all sorts of things. So I have an example, which may not be the best one here, but for instance, all users that we talk to at some point mention that they would like a solution where they could that they could have immediately access to their doctor when just a push of a button in their app. And whenever we talk to HCPs, it's a complete no-go. Of course, they don't want to work like that. Imagine the way they would work, all constant pulling from people that wants to get in contact with them. So it's important to balance the ideas that you get in, and also see a little bit and apply some critical thinking in trying to find solutions that actually solves the problem without creating new problems in other ways. So next slide. So the actual solutions that we create, of course, comes from a lot of user input, lots of talk with actual patients. But when it comes to creating the solution, there's a lot of post-its involved, and it's really down to the people that participate and their creativity to create the solution. The users don't provide the solution. You will have to apply lots of creativity, lots of good minds in this. And this involves large sessions, long discussions, and a great deal of looking out the windows. For instance, looking at the cows at the field can spark a lot of ideas here. And this whole creative process is of course fun and inspiring. But when we're working in this area, what we also have to acknowledge is that we have to at all times think about how can we create solutions that are in compliance with the regulations around us. So if you go to the next slide. So if we have tried many models around this. So you can do agile development, where you try to emulate a lot of small V models that in the end up in a compliant product and all sorts of things. So, but right now we are working. We have come to this simple picture, where what we really do is that we try to use prototype development for driving requirements, and use that also to engage with both regulatory and compliance leads to make sure that we both create a solution and the right compliance environment around it, so that it's actually something we can launch. So we actually develop more or less the full solution. Or at least until we know that we can be firm on the requirements. Then we lock on the requirements and bring them in and actually start all over again with the knowledge that we have gained, and then apply and start from the requirements and develop the solution accordingly to make sure that we have all the links in place and all the testing and all the traceability enabled to do the solution. So then, this is one of the areas that of course makes it very tedious to create software as a medical device, but it's also a needed process, and it's super important that we create a process where we both are able to be compliant, but that we are also keeping a level of agility, so that we can both submit and get our products approved, but also adapt to the users and their needs all the time. Can you go to the next slide? So we believe, software as a medical device development is of course difficult and requires a lot of input from many people. And actually to some extent, this is also what can actually hamper us a little bit. Because when you are a team that are doing software as a medical device solution, you will also have a huge environment of people that needs to participate, from regulatory, from compliance, from medical and science, from risk management, and all sorts of areas that needs to be taken into account. And it means that we add a lot of complexity to the solution, or to the solution development at least. And this is one of the areas where it is important to stay with it and make sure that you are still focusing on the user needs, and that is the things that are driving the solution, but that all the other input must be taken into account. So what we believe is that digital health solutions and software development is going to be part of the future development of medtech, and here it's important that we learn to establish good processes that can make us agile and able to adapt and create solutions that will actually help people with solving their problems in their lives. So I hope that we have been able to just share a little bit of the learnings that we have had here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really inspiring this as well, and also fantastic to see these creative processes with a lot of notes in different colors, etc. Really good. And we will move on, so please mute your microphones in the background so we can improve the sound quality for everyone. Thank you so much. Our final speaker of today, before we move on with a sort of open discussion, is Roland, who is coming from Baxter. And Roland, you are a site innovation champion at Baxter, I would say, Roland Persson, and you would like to talk to us about digital tools for healthcare in a home environment. So Roland, please turn on your camera, and you're welcome to share your presentation. Fantastic.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks for the invitation. Yeah, my name is Roland Persson, and I work at Baxter in Lund. So today I will talk about how we are using digital tools to enhance healthcare in a home environment. So I will talk about why digital tools can and will make a difference for our patients, and I will also give some examples on what we have done, what types of products we have put on the market. So just a slide about Baxter. So we have been around for quite a while now. So we have been in the life-saving and life-sustaining business for more than 85 years now. And we have around 50,000 employees worldwide. Our headquarters is in Illinois, USA. You see on the screen right now our 6 business units. That's in acute therapies, advanced surgery, clinical nutrition, medication delivery, pharmaceuticals, and renal care. So it's renal care where I come from, and this is about helping people that have kidney disease, and there are different types of treatment for that, and I will come into those soon. But our strength in Baxter in Lund is to have a system view on things, so focus on everything that has to do with therapy, not only the actual products, but also innovation starting from user needs, as we just heard in the previous presentation. And we have a strong focus on innovation in the site in Lund. If you have chronic kidney disease, that is a disease that progresses slowly over time, and when you have less than 10% of your renal function left, it's time for some kind of kidney replacement therapy. So it can either be a transplantation or it can be some kind of dialysis, and this is where we come in at Baxter to providing different types of dialysis. So there are basically two types. The first type is hemodialysis. So that is a process for cleaning your blood. And this happens in a session that is 4 or 5 hours, 3 times a week. You normally go to a hospital. Cleaning is done by using an external filter. So this is the most common type of dialysis, and around 85% of the patients end up here in hemodialysis. But we also have something called peritoneal dialysis. So instead of cleaning your blood outside the body, you use a membrane in your peritoneal cavity, in your abdominal cavity. That cavity is lined with a semi-permeable membrane that is used to cleaning your body from waste products and also excessive fluids. So this type of dialysis is mainly done at home. So what types of dialysis you should use as a patient is there are many different factors deciding that. So of course there is a medical consideration, but also practical considerations that you need to do. Can you actually travel to a clinic 3 to 5 times a week? So there are some considerations to be made, and this is done mainly by a doctor, physician, but also some of your own thoughts about this play a role. When it comes to peritoneal dialysis, there are 2 types of peritoneal dialysis. The first one is it's called continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis, and that's a manual type of treatment where you fill your abdominal cavity with fluids. You have it in your stomach for a couple of hours, and then you empty, and then you repeat this process over and over again. So that's the manual type. But then we have the automatic peritoneal dialysis, where this process is automated. And in this case, this exchange of fluid is done using a machine like we see on the screen right now. So then this machine takes care of your treatment. It's pumping the fluid in and out of you, controlling the volumes and everything. But you as a patient need to do certain steps to make it happen. You need to set up that machine to run your treatment. So there are a number of fluid bags that you need to prepare. You need to prepare line set, you need to connect everything together, and you need to make sure you do this in a hygienic way. But once that's all done, the treatment is run automatically by this machine, and normally that's done during night when you're asleep. So I will talk about digital tools that we have developed to support this kind of therapy. So normally, dialysis is a quite advanced type of therapy. So to be able to do it at home, as in this case, you need to take on some kind of responsibility yourself as a patient, and you need to handle the machines and handle the disposable products. So here digital solutions can play a difference. So if you look at chronic disease, as I mentioned, it is an advanced type of healthcare, and there are of course risks, and it needs to be done in the right way. It is a type of healthcare that require individualized care, so it's not one size fits all. Dialysis have a big impact on your life. Either you need to go to a clinic every other day, or you need to take on the responsibility and run your treatment at your home on your own. There is also some diet and fluid intake restrictions that you need to think about. Dialysis is a very costly type of healthcare. So in some countries, it's between 5% of the total healthcare budget that is spent on dialysis. So it's a lot of money we talk about here. It is advanced equipment that you need. There are a lot of consumables, the fluids, filters, needles, and so on. And these products normally need to be handled by specialists, nurses, and doctors. Also during this past year, COVID-19 has played a role in the world of dialysis patients. So reduced kidney function is in itself a risk factor, but also going to a clinic or hospital 5 times a week is a risk. So if you can do this at home, it is a significant improvement. So we at Baxter believe that home dialysis will grow in importance in the future. Right now, it's not the majority of patients, but there are initiatives around the world where there is initiatives to engage people in running their treatments on their own and doing it at home. So if you look at the trends in dialysis business, the population grows like 5 to 45% every year. So that's all good. But the number of nurses and number of physicians that should take care of these patients do not grow at the same rate. We do not build clinics and hospitals at the same rate. So there is a gap here. We need to do something, because otherwise all the patients will not be able to get the treatment in the future. There is also a trend to have more patient-centered care and more patient involvement in their own care. That's happening in healthcare in general, but also in dialysis. And as I mentioned, there are initiatives to reduce this costly type of treatment. So this means that there is a trend for home dialysis, and if this is supported by good digital solutions, it will be better for patients, for the clinic, and also for the society. Here we have an example of one of the systems we have created. Here, no. Here the system is called ChairSource. So the purpose of this system is to connect the patients with the clinic, hospital, and with us at Baxter. So here in this case, our patients are remotely at home, and there are many different patients and one patient in each location. So this is a challenge to handle this normally. But then with help of our cloud-based solution, ChairSource, we are connecting these 3 entities together in an efficient way. So using this system, it's not possible to, by a doctor or nurse sitting in hospital, can update prescriptions that are automatically then applied in the machines that are used by the patient. And then the treatment documentation, treatment results are going in the same way. So it's possible for doctors and nurses to monitor the treatment, and also to keep a documentation of all the treatment that has been done. Dialysis, as I mentioned, involves a lot of supplies. So what supplies are used by the patient can be sent automatically to Baxter, so we can deliver the supplies directly to the patient. And then there is the technical side of this, monitoring that this equipment is working as they should, and also providing software updates and so on. So for us in Baxter, this system has made a improvement over how peritoneal dialysis was delivered before. In the past, And also now the patient is going to the clinical hospital maybe once a month or every other month or something. And that was the time where you can actually check up on how the treatment has been going. And that was the time when you can actually change the prescription. Now that monitoring and prescription update can happen on a daily basis. So this is an example of how this product looks like. There is a web portal where the nurses and doctors log in, and they can get a quick overview of all the patients that you're responsible for. You can quickly see where do I need to put my attention. There are a system of green, yellow, and red flags. So yellow and red flags are the patients that might have had some issues in the past or the past treatments, and this is where you should drill down and look into more detailed information. And if needed, then you can update your prescription remotely, and that update will then be applied directly next time it's time for dialysis. Of course, with a system like this, you get a lot of data, and just presenting data in charts or graphs or lists will be too much information for many nurses and doctors. They need to attend to many patients inside the hospital and many remote patients like this. So it's important to keep system like these simple and very user-friendly, and not try to present all the data that you have. Another type of digital system that we are using is this system we call MySource, and that's a tool for digital training and communication. So I mentioned that dialysis is a advanced type of healthcare, and it is very important that the steps that you do, preparing the treatment, running the treatment, and ending the treatment, are done in the right way. So there are a lot of training for patients that are going to do it themselves at home. That training normally takes place in a hospital, but sometimes the patient, of course, need to go home and do it by themselves. And then they have a tool like MySource to support them with step-by-step pictures, voice guidance, and also movie clips on how to do the different steps and how to make sure that you don't forget certain steps. This type of tool also have a video call functionality, where if you have some questions or you want to show certain thing for your nurse, then you make a video call and you solve the problem right there and then, instead of maybe having to go to the hospital and for an extra checkup or visit. So to summarize, the digital health benefits in dialysis are real. So there has been done studies, I have an example of one here, where there are actually improved outcomes using remote management systems. The dropout rate where patients have to leave this form of dialysis and go to in-clinic dialysis are lower. And there is also a significant saving in the time and also the cost for this type of treatment. So it is benefits for the patient. Doing this type of treatment at home by yourself, you need to have the confidence, you need to have the sense of safety that you will be able to do it. Having digital tools that we have just looked at will help you feeling confidence and feeling that sense of safety. It also shortens the training time at the hospital, and you can go home quicker. It avoids extra visits to the hospital. And as I mentioned, some problems might be handled quickly over the phone or using that video call functionality that we looked at. For nurses, it's also an improvement. You can manage proactively your patient. You can monitor how things are going, and you can intervene and update prescriptions and things before they actually become a problem. You can monitor alarms, and you can advise the patient by phone. And it's possible for you to optimize your work, not having to go to the patient for everything that comes up. And for physicians, of course, it's important to keep track of how the patients are doing. And with these digital tools, you can, instead of getting an update once a month, you can get an update every day. And that is especially important for new patients that you still do not know, and they don't know everything that they need to think about when it comes to dialysis. You can adjust the treatment settings, the prescription, as often as you want, as often as it's needed. And it will enable more advanced medical care in a home environment. Doing things at home is sometimes also advantage when it comes to accuracy of measurement. So there is something called white coat pressure. So when you go to hospital and measure your blood pressure, that is automatically higher just because you are in a hospital environment. And so doing things at home might be also better from that perspective. And we talked about this as well. Early identification of problems is something that systems like this allow for. Yeah, so that was my last slide. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Roland. That was really interesting. I will take over the slide here, and it's now time for some Q&As. And we have a question from the audience, but I would like first to ask all of the speakers to turn on their cameras so we can see you. And I would like to start actually by asking you, Stefan, when you have heard and listened to all these presentations and you gave this sort of introductory, shared your thoughts on the topic in the beginning, is it anything that has popped up in your mind when you listen to this that you haven't think of before, or that surprises you, or something that you would like to emphasize from the presentations you have heard?
Thanks, Peter. I think one thing that strikes me when I was sharing my presentation was kind of the whole span from small startups to more mature companies. And what we have heard here from Baxter and Novo Nordisk is really, I think, a good example on how a mature organization handles their concepts to market. I think it's great to see how they are including and involving patients in their development, in their UX design, and also seeing how the patient-centric care is really at the top of the agenda. And I think that goes back to what I also talked about in the e-health strategies and the life science strategies. So this is really good kind of evidence that it's going in this direction. And as we heard here, examples of the white coat pressure and also how more efficient you can deliver healthcare by blending more of home care. I think that's a brilliant example. I think it was also nice and interesting to hear Holti from Dawn Health there when he talked about how you early need to identify where to make an impact in the patient journey and ensuring that you have that already set in the beginning of your own journey. So I think that was really good, really good examples. Interesting.
Thank you, Holti. We have a question from the audience for you, and it's coming from Mark Leon Wilhelmsen. And it's a question that concerns the COVID-19 situation we've had here over the last 12 months or even more, actually. How does the COVID-19 crisis affect your business strategy at Dawn Health in any, if so, in any positive or negative way?
That's a really good question, Mark. So, I mean, with COVID putting such immense pressure on the just healthcare institutions across, both to be able to manage those hit with COVID, as well as being able to manage those with chronic diseases or different variations, which is not COVID. The short answer is at least that the need for digital has increased greatly. So from a focus on just the general industry of digital health, these tools have become much more acknowledged by the doctors and also by patients. The need for this is just increasing, and COVID has really accelerated that need within the digital health industry.
Yeah, and I guess it's a lot of discussions on how this has really enhanced or speeded up the digitalization of the society in general, I guess, and perhaps that also helps in these specific cases. Roland, you talked about involving the patients in the design processes as well. You mentioned how important it is that you can see in your presentation. You showed that the clients or the customers or patients are actually really positive to use these new technologies. Have you done any similar sort of workshop related things as we saw at Novo Nordisk, for instance, or how do you interact with the patients?
Yeah, so we use this very similar process as Novo Nordisk explained, where we start all our innovation and development projects by identifying the user needs. And that's maybe even more important when you talk about digital projects. So it's easy to get technology driven and going for a technology push, because we see all this digital technology around us every day in our houses and all and lives. So I think to keep a focus on the user needs, even though we talk about digital solutions, so they are not a value in itself. They need to solve a user need, and maybe there is a combination between digital and hardware that is the product that we need to develop. It's often in our case at Baxter, it's not only software or only hardware. It's the combination of those that will make a really successful product.
And for our friends from Novo Nordisk, Tommy and Nicholas, is it? I mean, working with these kind of new solutions and working in partnerships with perhaps small innovative companies, is it? We heard before in some of the presentations the importance of having this readiness when going into a partnership. Can you elaborate a little bit on the readiness in how you make Novo Nordisk ready for start thinking in these new terms and to stay innovative and to work together with also the smaller companies in that sense, because it's quite different type of cultures in a big global pharma company like Novo Nordisk and perhaps smaller companies like Dawn Health.
Definitely, I mean, and it also comes a little bit down to which model we're talking about here, because we actually trying to collaborate with several different companies in various different modes. So we have more or less hands-off partnerships where we just are partners with and share knowledge and data or insights. And on all to completely integrated co-development where, for instance, some of the Dawn Health people are participating in a project where we are doing internal development in Novo Nordisk. So I think when we as a big company, to be honest, as a big company, it's easier for us to collaborate when it's under our systems and we can do and require all that we want, and it becomes a little more challenging when we work with smaller partners where they have their own system and also their own opinion on how to do stuff. But it's also where we need to kind of learn a little better to be more to accept some of what do you say? Yeah, the differences in that there's many ways to reach the same goal.
So it's about also being humble in some way, perhaps to also go away a little bit from the biggest partner knows the best, perhaps, and also accept that there will be other perspectives.
Yeah.
Holte, do you recognize what Tommy is mentioning here? I mean, I think it's a lot of small companies in the MVA family that, you know, would really like to partner up with big companies the way that you do at Dawn Health. Could you give some advices also for other companies that would like to partner up and perhaps guide us a little bit of what to think of?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say it's always a case by case on how to really do it in the best way. There's no one size fits all, I think, is the most important thing. One thing that could work, of course, with one company would be very different from another. I think the partnership approach will also, of course, vary when proceeding into co-creation of digital health solutions. And I think what's good to keep in mind is that, let's say for larger companies, it is important that partner understands and can navigate and understands the complexities of both large and regulated industries. Because if those complexities are not understood and how decisions are made in such organizations, then such a partner will not be able to actually proceed with creating innovation with that partner. I would always recommend, especially for smaller companies, to also think and start small, because some of these things can take a long time. But having, again, that first step to trying it out, experimenting, getting knowledge with time, because digital will, of course, is here to stay. And the earlier we embrace that knowledge in-house, in organizations, the better in the long term.
Great. We have another question here from the audience, and it's Michael Twisk. And it's for you, Tommy, and Roland as well. And I will read this question here now. It's probably one of the last questions we will have. In your products, Roland and Tommy, software continues to stay in a supportive role to a hardware component. Do you see the software becoming an enabler to completely new drivers, and that the hierarchy changes, so to speak, from software to hardware? Roland, would you like to start addressing it?
Yeah, so in our world, our focus is, of course, delivering dialysis care to our patients, and there will always be hardware needed to do that, and there will be all the fluids and all that we can, of course, not replace with some digital solutions, but for sure software plays a more important role when we look at our devices, but also when we look at supporting systems like we just looked at. There are some of our businesses would probably could probably be more software focused than hardware focused. So there are probably some areas where this will happen. We have not seen it to a great extent in Baxter yet, but yeah, maybe it can happen.
And Tommy, very briefly, we have 2 minutes left. You get one of the minutes.
So certainly, and I think we are seeing a move where software takes a larger part of the business, or not the business, but of this solving the problem for the user. Where we of course we will also have our devices and integrate with those, and they are an important and these are the key part of our way of delivering our care to the patient. But a lot of supporting actions and a lot of way of keeping track can be enabled by software. So I think software is definitely going to take a larger role in treatment of patients going forward.
Great, thank you so much. Our time is running up. I had a lot of more questions I would like to ask you, but we will have to save that for another time. I would like to thank you all, especially the speakers, for taking your time. It has been super interesting and a really good discussion, and I can promise you that we at Medicon Valley Alliance, we will come back to this topic in a quite near future, actually, and I hope that you will join us at that time as well. And I would also like to thank all of you who has been a part of this event in the audience, and hopefully we will be able to see you and meet you in person next time during autumn. So take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and stay safe, and see you later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.